While we get ready for the next season of 5-Minute Biographies, join us for a 10-part special. Over 10 working days, we will present 10 biographies of fictional characters, presented as if those characters were real, just for fun, and I hope you enjoy them. However, before we get into the next episode, I also have some news to share, which is that 5-Minute Biographies is rebranding. After the conclusion of the 10-part special series, we will rebrand to Compact Biographies. We will also be abandoning the seasons format, opting instead for a continuous stream of weekly episodes, potentially expanding to twice weekly. You don't need to do anything to continue listening because we'll use the same feed, so look out for the new branding coming soon. Right, with that being said, let's continue the 10-part special with episode 8, Huckleberry Finn. In the decades before the American Civil War, when the Mississippi River was both a frontier and a lifeline, a boy named Huckleberry Finn drifted down its currents and into legend. Born poor, restless, and suspicious of authority, he became one of the most recognizable figures in American folklore, not because of wealth or power, but because of his stubborn devotion to freedom and his instinctive sense of right and wrong. Huckleberry Finn was born around 1835 in the small river town of St. Petersburg, Missouri. His mother died when he was young, and his father, known locally as Pap Finn, was a violent drunkard who drifted between labor jobs and petty theft. With no stable home and little schooling, Huck learned early to fend for himself. He spent his childhood along the riverbanks, sleeping in barrels or on doorsteps, fishing for food, and dodging his father's fists. Townsfolk pitied him, but few offered real help. In the rough democracy of the frontier, where reputation was everything, Huck's ragged clothes and unruly manners marked him as an outsider. Yet beneath his dirt-streaked face and quick grin lay a sharp intelligence and an independence that no upbringing could smother. Huck's first taste of ordered life came when the widow Douglas and her sister Miss Watson took him in, determined to civilize him with clean clothes, prayers, and school lessons. Though he respected their kindness, he felt trapped. The small routines of domestic life, bedtimes, manners, and church were cages to a boy who had grown up with the river's endless horizon as his playground. His father's return forced a crisis. Pap Finn, enraged that his son was being educated and well-treated, seized him and dragged him to a log cabin in the woods, intending to reclaim authority and Huck's small inheritance. Huck endured months of captivity before escaping one night by faking his own death. The act was both desperate and ingenious, marking the beginning of his journey towards self-discovery. Fleeing along the Mississippi, Huck encountered Jim, a man enslaved by Miss Watson, who had run away after learning he might be sold south. Their meeting transformed both their lives. The two fugitives, one white, one black, found in each other a bond stronger than society's divisions. They built a raft and drifted through the heart of a divided America. The river became their world, a place of silence, danger, and reflection. By day, they hid among willows or floated lazily in the current. By night, they shared stories beneath the stars. Huck, raised among men who treated slavery as natural, began to see the hypocrisy of a world that called itself Christian, while denying humanity to others. His moral awakening came quietly. When faced with the choice between betraying Jim or breaking the law, Huck chose friendship over obedience. "All right then," he famously said to himself, "I'll go to hell." To him, it was no heroic declaration, merely the decision to follow his heart when every voice around him said he was wrong. The river, for all its beauty, was no sanctuary. Huck and Jim faced storms, shifting currents, and the constant threat of capture. On shore, the pair encountered every shade of human greed and folly, feuding families whose pride led to bloodshed, con artists masquerading as royalty, and towns still poisoned by the cruelty of slavery. Huck's quick thinking saved them more than once. He learned to spin lies as easily as he once skipped stones, disguising himself as a girl, a servant, even a runaway apprentice. Yet each deception left him uneasy. Freedom, he discovered, required honesty, not with others, but with oneself. After months on the river, a collision with a steamboat separated the companions. Huck's wanderings took him deep into the plantations of Arkansas, where he saw more clearly than ever the moral rot that slavery bred. When he and Jim were finally reunited, it was through luck, loyalty, and Huck's refusal to give up on his friend. Eventually, their odyssey ended, not with triumph, but with exhaustion. Jim gained his freedom through legal means, and Huck found himself once more at the threshold of civilization, offered comfort, education, and safety. But the boy who had slept beneath open skies could not abide walls for long. In his final known account, Huck spoke of lighting out for the territory, heading west, where the land was still untamed and a man might live without hypocrisy. Whether he ever reached those distant plains is uncertain. Some say he worked on steamboats, others that he joined settlers in Kansas or vanished into the wilderness. What is certain is that he never truly returned to the world he had left behind. Huck Finn's character reflected the contradictions of his age. He distrusted authority, yet valued honesty, mocked religion, yet lived by a moral code stronger than that of most preachers. His view of the world was simple but profound. People were good or bad by their deeds, not by their rank, race, or reputation. Though often described as uneducated, he possessed a natural intelligence born of observation. He could read a storm, interpret a stranger's expression, and sense danger in a tone of voice. His humour and adaptability made him both survivor and philosopher. Historians of the period view him as a symbol of the American frontier spirit, restless, skeptical, and unwilling to submit to convention. Yet his empathy, particularly toward Jim, transcended his time. In an era defined by division, he acted according to a sense of shared humanity that placed him decades ahead of his contemporaries. To understand Huckleberry Finn is to understand the Mississippi River itself. Stretching from the northern forests to the Gulf of Mexico, it was the spine of a nation, beautiful, dangerous, and always moving. The river carried Huck not just from one place to another, but from ignorance to understanding, from boyhood to moral adulthood. On his journey, the river served as a teacher and a mirror. Its floods and calms reflected the turbulence of a country torn between freedom and bondage. To the boy adrift on his raft, the current was both companion and judge, reminding him that the only constant in life was change. By the time of the Civil War, the story of Huckleberry Finn had become a folk legend retold in river towns and frontier camps. Some remembered him as a trickster, others as a runaway, still others as a prophet of conscience. His tale captured the contradictions of a nation learning, painfully, what equality really meant. Educators later held up his moral decision to protect Jim as one of the earliest expressions of individual conscience in American history. Abolitionists, humanists, and writers of the next century would cite him as proof that even a child raised in ignorance could recognize injustice when he saw it. The boy from the river became an emblem of youthful integrity, a reminder that morality is often clearest in those least corrupted by civilization. His story, though rooted in one time and place, continues to speak to every generation that struggles between social expectation and personal truth. Huck's life embodies the broader American frontier movement. He represents the transition from the old world of rigid hierarchy to the restless democracy of the new. His suspicion of authority echoed the growing distrust of institutions that would shape the nation's politics and culture. At the same time, his friendship with Jim marked a quiet revolution in moral understanding. It suggested that decency was not a matter of law but of empathy, a truth America itself would wrestle with for generations. Historians still debate his fate. Some imagine him settling somewhere beyond the Mississippi, a grown man telling stories to children by a campfire. Others believe he never stopped travelling, chasing the next horizon as if the river were still beneath him. Perhaps that uncertainty is fitting. Huckleberry Finn was above all a wanderer. To know his ending would be to confine him, and he belonged to no one. Huckleberry Finn remains one of the most enduring symbols of freedom in American history. His life reminds us that morality is often found not in laws or sermons, but in quiet acts of compassion. He was poor, uneducated, and perpetually adrift. Yet his moral compass pointed true when the world's did not. In following the current of his own conscience, he showed that real courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act rightly when all others are wrong. The boy who lit out for the territory still rides the river in the imagination, forever young, forever searching, and forever free. Thanks for listening to the 5-Minute Biographies podcast from 5minutebiographies.com. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts, or if you would like to support us more directly, why not consider buying us a coffee? Head on over to 5minutebiographies.com/coffee to see how. Also, why not check out our other 5-minute podcasts, which you can find at 5minuteproductions.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.